he's not releasing Grand Theft Auto 6 in the age of Trump. It's really unclear what we would do with it, let alone how upset people would get with whatever we did, says the co-founder of Rockstar Games. Both intense liberal progression and intense conservatism are both very militant and very angry. It is scary, but it's also strange, and yet both of them seem occasionally to veer towards the absurd. It's hard to satirize for those reasons. Some of the stuff you see is straightforwardly beyond satire. It would be out of date within 2 minutes. Everything is changing so fast. So that was Dan Houser's quote in 2018, right before the release of Red Dead Redemption 2, on why he's very happy that GTA 6 is not releasing right now. And essentially the reason he said that is because the politics of America, which is what Grand Theft Auto is based off of, a parody of America, is so insane right now. It's scary, it's strange, it's veering towards the absurd, that they wouldn't even know what to do in terms of how they could make a proper parody of America. And that's why he said at the time he was thankful that their next game was Red Dead Redemption 2, which was taking place in a period in the past where they already knew things that had occurred. Because it's more than likely that GTA 6 would take place in the present day, just like the last two Grand Theft Auto games have taken place in, GTA 4 and Grand Theft Auto 5. And politics is certainly something we don't talk about a lot here on the channel unless it specifically revolves around the world of Rockstar, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, whatever the case might be. But because today is election day, if you want to take Dan Houser's words at face value, that means today, if the results go one direction, there's a chance that Rockstar could say, hey, we're not releasing Grand Theft Auto 6 until after the next election cycle, which would be in 2024. Now, do I really believe that Rockstar is going to alter their business plans just because one person is elected over another?
The casino store is open. Come dress
Keep in
like
mind that both Rockstar and the current politics proactive deal in the business of billions. I can only imagine that they are connected to the politics that happen not only throughout the world, but especially in the United States, not only to the business decisions that they make, but also potentially some of the things they do inside of their video games, which could be directly related to their
Oh wait, if it's going on to maintenance, how come I didn't play GTA Online?
2020 has certainly been a
You know what it's doing? It also says that no one's online. Like it's saying that you're offline and it's saying that I'm offline. The same thing with Rex. Rex is in the party, but I can't hear it. That's weird. I wonder if you join the party, if you'll be able to hear it. But yeah, Rex is in the party. I just can't hear it. Like his mic thing, it keeps flashing like that. It keeps flashing. I guess that's because of the maintenance. I don't know. But that's weird because it let me get online. The last time it was a maintenance, it didn't let me get online at all. That's weird.
Hello, this is Agatha, the casino and resort manager, again.
So just keep that in mind, that the results of whatever happens today here in the United States and whatever occurs over the next couple of weeks, that at the time the current Rockstar Games co-founder said this would have an impact on when he would release the next Grand Theft Auto title. So again, just keep that in mind.
It's Macy's Veterans Day sale with our lowest prices of the season on furniture and mattresses. Like this leather sofa for $8.99 and a new bed just $7.89. Plus, get a free adjustable base with qualifying mattress purchase. Now at Macy's.
Hey, what about Zero? Wait, there's Zero that's in the party? Because it says Rex is in the party, not Zero. Unless Zero is using a Rex account. Because it shows say Rex. It says Rex is in the party, not Zero. Yeah, it's showing Rex is in the party. Unless it's Zero that's on Rex account. But it don't say. But it's saying Rex is in the party. Zero might be using this account. I don't know because it say he's in the pool.
Very, very early pre-orders up for GTA 6. And it looks like Google has done the exact same thing, because if you Google
I'm gonna take a screenshot of it.
Google VI, you'll end up getting this thing on the side that Google does that like generates an autofill for like a game that currently exists. And so you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, or if you're doing this on mobile devices, I'm sure it's Speaking of things that are going on from Rockstar,
That is Zero.
actually getting kind of upset, at least fans that are looking for GTA 6, because instead of Rockstar talking about not only things that aren't happening with their current games, like the expanded and enhanced version of GTA 5, the next updates for
But that's weird because when I go to the party,
or Red Dead Online,
when I go to the party, it's showing Rex instead of Zero.
pattern lately of highlighting like things that have been going on in the community, which don't get me wrong, is cool, but when it's the only thing that Rockstar instead of this, you'll see a couple of posts.
Yeah, I think that's a glitch because there's no way.
Fix John Marston in the next update. You also have a couple of people that are asking for Grand Theft Auto Online's new update and to hear information on that. But again, hear about Grand Theft Auto 6. And I
I'll show that you playing.
things that Rockstar have got going on excited for the expanded
It's showing that Jewel flying.
life. I think
I don't know why that's a glitch.
Rockstar on look what's happened to
Cause he only used to get on to like about 5 or 6.
CD Projekt Red has done a great job of talking about the game on
I wonder if I could do
Twitter, but now they're having to say like,
if I could do a knuckle edition or a conversation. I want to see if it let me do it. I know you can't be rated,
it's certainly a fine,
but I want to see if it let me do.
but I understand maybe why they aren't talking about it, but it definitely has fans of GTA 6 definitely more frustrated because it's just been radio silence going on a handful of years now. We don't know when we're going to hear anything from them. But anyways, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about everything we discussed in this
So yeah, I can't do like club promotion and invite on the picture.
There's a huge impact on the release date of GTA 6.
Oh, so but wait. But if they doing the maintenance, why let me get on GTA Online?
You want to run a job. Great. Perfect timing.
The last time I did a maintenance, it
When I was in with the mob,
the last time I did a maintenance when I started a job, it kicked me out. Remember?
Get the truck back
It
here
didn't do
before
it
you
this
step
time.
things up for our patrons.
But the first time when they had maintenance, and I was to start load up a mission, it kicked me out of the game. It didn't do that though. I wonder if it's because I'm in a public in an invite only session. But I wonder if I go to a solo public session, and I go to boot up a mission if it'll kick me out the game. But I just got on. That's weird. Is it still in, are you still in the session or no, kick you out? Because it don't show that you're in the session. Yeah, it don't show you in the session at all. It's just showing the people that's online. But it's showing that you offline, so it's not showing you in the session. And I guess because of the maintenance, I don't know. But it might be why, because it's not showing that you're in the session. And it probably not, or it's not gonna show you that I'm in the session because it's an invite only session. Oh, now you kick me out the room. Now I say you're no longer in the party due to an error. Yeah, they kick me all the way out the corner. I don't know how, why would they pick today to do the learn me? Oh, you got on? I guess it must have kicked with it. Did it kick you off or something? Or you just decided to get on? I guess you got off when you saw what's going on in the maintenance. You mean to tell me I couldn't hit him as close as he was? Maybe that's why I should buy him. seems very cool.
Well, at least they know not to mess with us anymore. Maybe that will bring in the cool kids.
levels. Rising sea levels are threatening America's coasts. You would have to take that house and put it on stilts 10 feet below. If the street is filled with saltwater, what difference does it make how high you make your house? The concentration of the highest rental rates is exactly where the elevation is highest.
This was the evidence to prove that climate gentrification was real.
Pay $1,800 in 5 days or you have to leave. Are you scared?
Yes.
Every single person who stood up and said, I am not paying this rent increase.
This place and you're getting kicked out.
Yes.
The biggest names in politics.
Whoa, that's news. Do you think that the president has the authority to send in active duty troops?
Face the questions you want answered.
Did the CDC let the American people down? Tell me about the decision. When was it made? Who made it? What is the next area that you are concerned about? What does that mean for the risk of reinfection here in the United States?
Bring up a very good point, Margaret. No, it's a great question. Face of the Nation with Margaret Brennan on CBS.
Even really young kids are feeling what's going on right now. How should parents be talking to them about this whole question of racial justice?
How do we embrace this moment and turn it into real change?
Let's focus on this movement from protesting to policy.
We are closely watching some key Senate races tonight that could decide the majority in the chamber. Republicans are defending nearly twice as many seats as Democrats. Voting is on Capitol Hill. Some of the down-ballot races that could be pivotal.
Control of the White House isn't the only thing at stake on this election day. 35 Senate seats are also up for grabs. Republicans occupy 23 of them. Senators at risk include party leaders such as South Carolina's Lindsey Graham. 6 years ago, Graham was re-elected with a 17-point margin. His race against Democrat Jane Harrison is now seen as a toss-up. Susan Collins is seeking a fifth term as Maine's senior senator. Collins won the last race by 26 points, but today she's neck and neck with Democrat Sarah Gideon, Maine's Speaker of the House. In Georgia, Senator David Perdue is in a tight race against 33-year-old Democrat John Ossoff.
It's not just that you're a crook, Senator. It's that you're attacking the health of the people that you represent.
After that moment went viral, Purdue pulled out of their final debate. A special election is being held for Georgia's other seat, currently held by Republican Kelly Loeffler. Candidates face a runoff if no one gets more than 50% of the vote. 2 years ago, Arizona Republican Martha McSally lost her Senate race but was later appointed to the late Senator John McCain's seat. Polls show her trailing former astronaut Mark Kelly. Democrats seized control of the House back in 2018. Today, the House holds 232 Democratic seats, and polls suggest they're likely to increase their advantage. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi believes the pandemic has been the crucial issue facing voters.
We have to be ready for how we're going to go down a different path. We've come to a fork in the road when it comes to the coronavirus.
Speaker Pelosi says if Democrats control the House, Senate, and White House, they will move quickly to pass the coronavirus relief bill and take steps to strengthen the Affordable Care Act. Mufti Imam, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
We're taking a deeper dive into some of these close Senate races that include in North Carolina, where Senator Tom Tillis is facing Democratic challenger Cal Cunningham. Up until Election Day, the incumbent trailed in most polls. And to Georgia, where 2 Republican Senate seats are up for grabs. That includes a special election, which could go to a January runoff if no candidate clinches 50% of the vote. For more, let's bring in Nick Oxner and Greg Bluestein. Nick is the chief investigative reporter for our CBS affiliate in Charlotte, WBTV. He's at the Mecklenburg County Board of Elections. And Greg is a political reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Welcome. It's great to have you both. Nick, I want to start with you and some breaking news. North Carolina State Board of Elections is holding an emergency meeting to consider extending voting times at additional precincts. What's the latest?
Yeah, Lane, they've actually extended voting in
to consider requests to extend voting at another 7 additional precincts. Those counties include Cabarrus County, which is a suburb of Mecklenburg here in the Charlotte area, Sampson County, which is in the southeastern part of the state, near Bladen County, which you remember, Elaine, from the 9th Correctional District scandal, and then another county in the northeastern part of the state. These all, Elaine, are pretty routine in North Carolina and all happen anytime voting's been delayed or interrupted for more than 15 minutes.
Well, let's turn to the Senate race there, Nick. Senator Tom Tillis is facing a tough re-election battle. He's been backed by some prominent Republicans, including President Trump. Does that support help or hurt him with North Carolina voters?
Yeah, that support actually helps Tom Tillis. As we've talked about over the last few months, Elaine, Tillis was actually underperforming the president, and mostly because he had a big problem with Republican base voters. And so we've seen that problem, that gap narrow considerably. We've seen Tillis with Trump. Trump's been in the state a lot over the last days and weeks, and Tillis has been on stage with him just about every chance he can get. And as a result, you started to see, because of that and probably some other things, you started to see that gap between Tillis and Cunningham close considerably.
Well, Greg, Georgia is the only state with both Senate seats on the ballot. How should we expect that to impact turnout today?
Yeah, well, we've had record early voting turnout with nearly 4 million voters casting their ballots before Election Day. What we're starting to hear anecdotally right now, we won't know for sure for a few more hours, but anecdotally, lighter turnout than expected in precincts across the state. A few precincts, just like in North Carolina, have some minor issues that are being held open for a few more hours. But for the most part, voting went smoothly. But what we have seen is we expect turnout to far surpass 4.1 million votes, which was the 2016 record-setting turnout. A lot of tension in the air, a lot of uncertainty about whether one or both of Georgia's U.S. Senate contests could go to a runoff.
Well, Greg, for this special election, Senator Kelly Loeffler is in a crowded field. That includes going up against Republican Congressman Doug Collins. How is having 2 well-known Republicans on the ballot impacting the GOP's chances of holding on to the seat?
What it's done is divided Republicans into warring factions in Georgia and allowed the Reverend Raphael Warnock, the Democratic frontrunner, to really escape a lot of Republican attacks. He has risen in the polls. He's at the high 30s to low 40s in most recent polls. Not enough for an outright win, but enough for a solid first-place showing tonight. And at the same time, Republicans are just divided. You've got some of the biggest players in Georgia Republican politics backing either Doug Collins or Kelly Loeffler, and there's little chance of a clean sort of reuniting later on this week or next week, however long it takes to count the ballots. There's still going to be some lingering tensions, and Democrats are going to try to exploit those.
Yeah, I imagine so. Well, Nick, let's turn to the presidential race. President Trump clinched North Carolina by about 3.5 percentage points in 2016. He visited the state yesterday in his final campaign swing. Here's some of what he told voters.
Get out and vote. That's all I ask. Just take a little time and vote. Look, we got to win this state. I think we win this state. We win Pennsylvania. We're going to win Florida. We win Pennsylvania. And we're going to win the whole thing. We're going to win the whole thing. And we'll send them a signal like they've never seen before.
So how has the Trump campaign focused on North Carolina, and is there any evidence that the message is resonating?
Well, and I think the biggest evidence is just look at most public polling and as the race between Biden and Trump in North Carolina down to anywhere from 1 to 3 points, depending on the poll. So, functionally neck and neck. We've also seen President Trump or someone else with the last name Trump on the ground in North Carolina almost each of the last 30 days. This is clearly a state that they're targeting heavily. And, you know, when you look at the polling, you look at the response trying to activate their voters and get them to the polls, certainly seems like that's having an impact. We'll see. The polling's pretty much at the same spot it was with Trump and Clinton in 16 when Trump pulled out the win here. So we'll see if that happens again tonight.
Well, Greg, a Democrat has not won the presidential contest in Georgia since 1992. You wrote about the, quote, 30-30 strategy. What is that, and how could it give Democrats the edge?
Yeah, Yeah, and Democrats, the vaunted number has been 30-30. That is 30% of the white vote in Georgia, which of course is very racially polarized, and 30% African-American turnout. And those numbers have not been remotely hit in the past few elections. Exit polls in 2016 showed Hillary Clinton getting about 21% of the white vote in Georgia. So that's why that number, Democrats feel like they're anywhere close to that 30-30 mark. They feel like they have a good shot of winning a state like Georgia, which has not gotten nearly the attention that North Carolina's got. But in the last week, both President Trump and Joe Biden have visited Georgia, which for a state used to being an afterthought has been a monumental shift.
Yeah, it really does sort of underscore the importance of your state. All right, Nick Oxner and Greg Bluestein, great to have you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the role the Latino vote will play in the battleground of Nevada. Why the economy and not immigration is a top issue for voters. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.
The biggest names in politics.
Whoa, that's news. Do you think that the president has the authority to send in active duty troops?
These are the questions you want answered.
Did the CDC let the American people down? Tell me about the decision. When was it made? Who made it? What is the next area that you are concerned about? What does that mean for the risk of reinfection here in the United States?
You bring up a very good point, Margaret. Oh, no, it's a great question. Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan on CBS.
Go to the ends of the earth
Right now. We got something crazy.
and reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my tongue back.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Well, what's the idea of being a human being?
innovative, and truly original discovery.
Going up because you gotta press start. If
Because
you
there's
don't press
always
start,
something new under the
the
sun
big light will
on
go off.
CBS Sunday morning.
Experts say the country should be prepared to not immediately know who won the presidency and a number of other races. Chris Martinez explains what goes into making.
As voters head to the polls today, it's becoming more uncertain if the country will have a projected winner of the presidency on November 3rd.
If the margin is close, like in any race, to get to a final tally, it always takes time.
UCLA political science assistant professor Dan Thompson says a record surge of mail-in votes triggered by the coronavirus pandemic could leave some states needing more time to count their ballots. The rules for processing and counting mail-in votes vary from state to state, and most begin processing those ballots before Election Day. But when it comes to actually counting the ballots, at least 30 states legally can't begin until Election Day. That includes Pennsylvania, where a handful of counties won't begin counting until November 4th.
Election administrators have been focused on this issue for many, many months, and I think by and large, they've been preparing for exactly these types of concerns.
In some states, mail-in ballots arriving after Election Day could also delay the final results. The question of how late those ballots will be accepted has prompted a number of legal challenges this year. Just last week, the Supreme Court said absentee ballots in North Carolina can arrive up to 9 days after November 3rd. This after the High Court decided ballots won't be accepted in Wisconsin if they arrive after the polls close on Election Day. Those outcomes are part of a record-setting number of election-related lawsuits this year, with more than 300 filed in 46 states. Experts
I have to put the green piece back.
challenges once the vote tally begins. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Officials are projecting historic turnout among Latino voters, with as many as 15 million expected to send in ballots nationwide. That demographic is crucial to winning Nevada. Roughly 30% of Nevada's population is of Hispanic or Latino descent. That is among the highest in the nation. Polls do not close in the Silver State until 10 p.m. Eastern, though the state did send each active registered voter an absentee ballot because of the pandemic. Hillary Clinton won Nevada in 2016 by just over 17,000 votes. Our CBS News Battleground tracker says the state's 6 electoral votes lean toward Democrats yet again this year. CBS News correspondent Enrique Acevedo joins me now from Las Vegas. Enrique, thanks very much for being with us. You have been talking to Nevada's Latino voters there. Let's go ahead and play a clip of an activist you spoke to who is supporting Joe Biden.
In Nevada, for the past 15 years, the Latino electorate has been the most powerful electorate. It has been the one that's grown the most. So I think that a lot of what happens is people, campaigns, parties don't know how to reach out to our community. And so, the last minute scrambles where they kind of say, oh, they don't want to come out and vote. But no, our community is engaged. Our community has cared for years, which is why we've made the strides that we've made. Well, we wish that there were a lot more, bigger ones, but I think that our community has really proven that when it comes time for them to vote, they come and vote, and Nevada's an excellent example of that.
So what more are you hearing about the level of enthusiasm among Latino voters in Nevada and across the country?
I can tell you from the people that we've spoken to, Elaine, that enthusiasm among Latino voters is really at an all-time high. We've already seen a reported 8.6 million Latinos vote early. That's compared to 3.8 million in 2016. This is coming from the nonpartisan nonprofit Naleo. But we're also seeing how Latinos are behaving more and more like the rest of the electorate. Two-thirds of Latino voters are U.S. born now. This means that immigration is not necessarily a priority. These voters care about jobs, they care about healthcare, and they care about issues that are affecting their everyday lives.
Well, I think we know that unions have massive power in Nevada, particularly culminating unions in Las Vegas. What have their members or leaders told you about their efforts leading up to today?
We spoke to culinary union workers. They have over 60,000 members, a majority of them women of color. They've been canvassing all over the state. They told us they knocked on over 400,000 doors since August. And they also told us how record high unemployment and the devastating impact COVID has had in their communities are driving people to the polls. It's important to remember that we're entering this election with record high national unemployment. That's at about 8% nationally, and Nevada is also one of the states with the highest unemployment rates across the entire country.
Well, the pandemic has hit Nevada's economy hard because so much of it is tourism-based. You spoke with a member of the state's Latino Trump Advisory Board who dismissed any connection to the president's policies and blamed Nevada's Democratic governor. Let's play that.
The Latino community that we've been speaking to, they see that and they want to have a more vibrant economy. They want to reopen our economy and send their children back to school so that they can go to work. Obviously, all this done in a safe way, but we have to have a path to reopening faster. If they see that the leader that wants to do that is President Donald Trump.
So, Enrique, what else have people told you about how the pandemic is affecting their vote?
Well, although a majority of Latinos identify as Democrats, many support President Trump. And I think Jesus Marquez, the head of the Latino vote for Trump in Arizona and Nevada, was making the point about how this is not a monolithic community, about how many Latinos were happy with the way President Trump was handling the economy. This is pre-COVID, and they want to get back to that as soon as possible. The challenge, of course, is, and I think many Americans would agree, is doing that in a way that respects and addresses the necessity for appropriate safety measures, especially for frontline essential workers.
Well, as we mentioned, Nevada is one of the states that automatically sends mail ballots to voters because of the pandemic. To try and stop early processing of votes. When do officials expect to start announcing results tonight in Nevada? Could it take days?
Well, that's the question in everyone's minds, not just here in Nevada, but across the country. Votes are being counted here in Nevada as we speak. Volunteers and staffers are working on this. They've been working on counting votes since October 15. And people are still in line trying to cast their votes. We expect this to continue throughout the day. And as soon as we hear from them and from the decision desk, we'll have results for our audience too.
All right, we're watching closely. Enrique Acevedo, thank you very much. Our CBS News campaign reporters have been covering this election for us for more than a year. Now it's coming to a close. Earlier, I spoke with Nicole Skanga and Bo Erickson, who have been covering the Biden and Trump campaign. But first, I want to talk about how the campaigns are feeling ahead of polls closing tonight. Nicole, let's start with the Trump campaign. How are they feeling?
Well, senior advisors in the Trump campaign describe what they're feeling as a quiet confidence. Now, in 2016, they say they had a ton of enthusiasm. They knew it was out there, but no campaign structure or organization. This time around, they know that they have enthusiasm on the ground. We've seen it at the president's many rallies, but they also have a get out the vote campaign and a field team that is working into the hours tonight to turn out those voters in key battleground states like Pennsylvania and Florida. Now, there are still nerves among some GOP officials because the president is largely on defense, defending the states he won back in 2016. And the most obvious path to 270 electoral votes requires that the president defend states like Florida, North Carolina, Arizona, and Georgia, and pick up either Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. Now, that is a tall order for this campaign.
And Bo, what about the Biden campaign?
Talking to sources yesterday and today, they all tell me that they are optimistic. It seems like they put in the work and that the results are happening both in early voting and today they're getting the numbers that they expected to and wanted to get. In the past couple of days, there's been some more hesitancy around Florida. Maybe it's looking like it's a little bit more competitive and maybe slanting towards President Trump, and one person told me, but they're especially feeling confident in Michigan and Wisconsin. Joe Biden actually recently just spoke. He just arrived back into Delaware after campaigning in Scranton and Philadelphia, and he said he likes what he's seeing with women voters, young voters, African American voters, and especially those older voters over 65. He says he is confident that we will see the blue wall, but he's waiting to see if that blue wall kind of goes south to Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, that area as well.
All right. Well, I know you two have spent an inordinate amount of time covering the campaign trail. This is not at all the campaign trail that we envisioned when all of this started. But I do want to ask, starting with you, Nicole, what was the highlight of covering your candidate?
I think the biggest highlight for all of us, Elaine, is getting to meet the voters in some of these battleground states. And tonight, there's going to be a lot of discussion about electoral votes and the horse race and what the candidate did when and
Because they just waltzed in there and made off with your weapons stockpile. Get back and try to stop them before they fly off in a Valkyrie and you never see it again.
that have opened their homes prior to COVID-19, allowed us to talk to them, shared their concerns about this upcoming election with us. That has been a real highlight for me on the campaign trail.
What about you, Bo?
The highlight for me so far has just been basically the whole month of February. It went from the lowest of low for the Biden campaign. I'm talking to sources now, and they were saying you really did not know how negative we actually felt, even though it seemed pretty rocky those 18 days between New Hampshire and South Carolina. And when you saw Joe Biden get that endorsement from Webb Clyburn, he almost seemed shocked, and I will never forget his face there about how much confidence Webb Clyburn had in him. Then just a couple days later, he finally got that first primary more than 30 years after he announced his first presidential campaign. I'm told now to kind of bring this all together. You talked about an atypical campaign style. There is some level of comfort here among the Biden campaign because you're here in Delaware, where this campaign and the Biden family lives.
Well, I remember that night in South Carolina, the night of the primary, very quickly. Clearly, rather, that was the last time.
Johnny, listen to me.
On the road. So
I've got the medic with me here, okay?
it's been a long time for you two.
Oh, you took it to open the door. Okay. We need to see him though to make sure. I need to see him. I have to go by policies and procedures. I've got insurance to make sure I fill out. I have to fill out like 20 forms tonight for this, okay? I got a rubber stamp that it's okay, alright? So it's just a formality, this is the procedure. I need to see him, okay?
Devastating flooding has reached catastrophic levels.
Sea levels are threatening America's coasts. You would have to take that house and put it on stilts 10 feet below.
Not see it, Johnny.
It's filled with salt water. What difference does it make how high you make your house? The concentration of the highest rental rates is exactly where the
gentrification to
5 days where you have to leave.
Element doorway open. I'm outside.
Every single person who stood up and said, I am not paying this rent increase, received an eviction.
Patience builds this place, and you're getting kicked out.
Oh, God, it's the worst.
The biggest names in politics. Well, that's news. Do you think that the president has the authority to send active duty troops to face the questions you want answered? Did the CDC let the American people down? Tell me about the decision. When was it made? Who made it? What is the next area that you are concerned about? What does that mean for the risk of reinfection here in the United States?
Bring up American 44 report. That's a great question. Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan on CBS.
Come to the ends of the earth right now. We got something crazy on. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Tom.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. Oh, wait, there's
Experience thought-provoking,
The idea of aiming at the day.
innovative, and truly original. That's good.
Look through a telescope, Nicole.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning. Good evening and welcome. You're looking live at Times Square in New York City, the crossroads of America, and our home tonight as America decides. Welcome to our CBS News election headquarters. I'm Laura O'Donnell, and it is almost 7 o'clock in the east, 4 o'clock in the west, and polls are about to close in 6 states, giving us the first results of an election night that may still not be over by the morning or the week, and ending a presidential campaign that is both historic and unprecedented. As we come on the air tonight, the coronavirus pandemic has infected more than 9 million nationwide, stolen more than 230,000 American lives, and cost more than 22 million jobs. In the process, it has not only reshaped the reasons why Americans say they voted, it has changed how we cast ballots, with more than 101 million people voting before election day, and millions more waiting in lines today, some for hours. Powerhouse CBS News reporting tonight, and we'll use some new technology, including America Decides map, to show you which states the candidates have won and which ones are leading. Take care of some states. Polls in 6 states are just phones, and 6 have been characterized Georgia as a toss-up. Joe Biden still that reliably red Republican state. President Trump is likely to win Indiana, Kentucky, and South Carolina are leading for Trump. Joe Biden is likely to win Vermont, and Virginia is leaning for Biden. Neither candidate has any electoral votes at this point, but just remember, the race closes to 270, and it's just getting underway tonight. We mentioned we're bringing you the exclusives of CBS News. Our correspondents are with the candidates and live in all 51 states. In our CBS News election headquarters, Bill King joined us, Robert Brennan, and Nick O'Keefe. Thanks for hanging out.
Hey, come back and tell me about clothes, but hey, that's just bad. What I'm saying.
Because so much of our lives has changed.
You do that. Get it out with me. Hey, son, where you at? Come on. Mom, gotta get these right up. Right up. Get the man, what?
The turnout has just been incredible, Gail.
That's what I think. I want to focus on that for just a second. What we do know, we don't know the end result yet, but we do know this. People are tired. They just want this to be over. I just felt holding AH in this
Hispanic voters turned out. They were very upset. Black voters turned out in record numbers, galvanized in part by the Black Lives Matter movement, racial injustice, social injustice. People have sort of had it up to here, and they're speaking out in numbers that they haven't spoken before. But this right now is trending to be the most diverse electorate ever. There are going to be so many firsts tonight, Laura.
I think that's a great point. The most diverse electorate ever.
Reminding people it's getting worse, not better. If you look at the 13 battleground states, the infection rate has jumped 52% in the past 2 weeks. So people are experiencing this in a very real way. And if
Somebody should tell President Trump, though, Margaret, because he says that it's getting better, that, we've rounded the curve. I think he's gotten the memo that it's not getting better.
Well, one place we're seeing people get the memo certainly are among women. College-educated white women in particular, suburban women. We're looking across all demographics, but you have seen a hardening among college-educated white women in their